Fellas, unless you've been living under a rock, there's now a petition to strip Jon Jones from the undisputed UFC heavyweight belt. It's got over 100,000 signatures of people wanting to see Jon Jones get stripped from the belt, lose his title, and potentially for Tom Aspinall to become promoted to the undisputed champion, and for this petition to be overlooked and decided on by Mr. Dana White himself. Now, I'm yet to sign this petition. If we look at the issue in the description, it says Jon Jones is now the longest reigning UFC champion in heavyweight history. There's a clear interim champion who Jon Jones refuses to fight. Therefore, as fans, we must let Dana White know it's time to strip Jon Jones. I agree with this. I'll happily sign this petition. Even Tom Aspinall himself has publicly signed this petition to erase Jon Jones.
On earth that he's going to fight me. Not a chance. I will retire Jon Jones without even fighting him.
This is aged very well for Tom Aspinall because this is still the case. Initially, Jon Jones obviously runs away from Tom Aspinall. Aspinall has to get past Curtis Blaydes. He knocks out Curtis Blaydes. Jon then clings onto a potential fight with Alex Pereira after the Stipe fight. And now, because Alex has now lost to Magomed Ankalaev, there's nowhere else for Jon Jones to run. The only possible fight he can take next is Tom Aspinall. So if it comes to Tom Aspinall signing a petition to get that belt removed from Jon Jones, that's pathetic for Jon Jones' career as well. Apparently, Jon Jones, Carlos Portes, and Dana White's wife have also been people who have signed this petition. Mohammed Makai has been vocal on Twitter as well. But in all seriousness, what does this say about the UFC? Because the UFC, it's always branded as the best versus the best and for the fans. You know, Dana White always compares or says the UFC is better than boxing for that exact reason, that it's always the fights the fans want to see, the best versus the best. But when there's a petition to strip a UFC champion with over 100,000 signatures, that's just everything you need to know about this situation. I don't think we've ever had anything like this in the UFC before. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if the number of people who have signed this petition is above the amount of pay-per-view buys for UFC 315, which is, you know, just crazy for the UFC. It's also trending on the official trending page for the petitionchange.org website of the Jon Jones getting stripped from the undisputed belt. It's one of the biggest petitions going. So when there's that many people that don't want to see Jon Jones as a champion, that many people who've signed this petition, they want to see Tom Aspinall become the undisputed heavyweight champion because Jon Jones refuses to fight him. That's embarrassing, man. Even at the press conference for UFC 309, it was in USA, in Jon Jones' hometown. Aspinall isn't even fighting, and there's still Tom Aspinall chants, which obviously made Jon Jones nervous. He was shaking all over the place. Now, what would this petition do? In all honesty, it's likely going to do nothing. Even if this was to reach like 1 million signatures, I doubt this would do anything, because if you look on the petition page, the decision makers for this petition is Dana White. I can guarantee some media guy's going to confront Dana White. He's going to ask him to repeat the question. A media guy's going to confront Dana White, and Dana White's going to say it's bullshit and just completely ignore this petition going on.
Everybody going to admit now that he's the best fighter in the world.
He's likely going to say November 2025 in MSG. He's going to try and get that fight with Jones and Aspinall. I assume that's what the UFC are going to look to do, which is why they've not stripped and why they probably won't strip Jon Jones from the heavyweight belt without having to fight somebody first. But initially, the fight was supposed to be in UFC 317 in summer of 2025. Now it's been pushed back to November, which is already long enough. If it doesn't happen in November, they have to strip Jon Jones. I swear, if Dana White says early 2026, that's disgraceful, man. I mean, Tom Aspinall's last fight was all the way in July of 2024 against Curtis Blaydes. He's been ready to fight ever since. And he kind of got a hopes up recently. He said there's going to be a big announcement today, and it ended up being for a fucking pre-workout. Cheers for that, Aspinall. But it seems like the UFC community are really starting to turn on Dana White as well for this. But potentially, what this petition could do is obviously bring awareness, more awareness on this fight with Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall. Maybe potentially outside the UFC. It is likely to bring some negative PR to the UFC, which obviously the UFC don't really want. It is going to increase journalist concern. I assume Dana White's going to get swarmed by journalists for this same reason. And it will delegitimize the champ. Not that he's legit already, but this is only going to make things worse. There's even now been a petition after all this to remove Dana White as the UFC CEO. I think that's gone a bit too far, but it honestly doesn't surprise me the way that Dana White's been handling this whole situation with Jones and Aspinall. And ironically, on screen, you can see Movzor Evloev signing as well, which I don't blame him, to be fair. The fact that he's now having to fight Aaron Pico instead of Alexander Volkanovski, and they do Volk versus Rodriguez too. I don't blame Movzor Evloev. But anyway, back to the discussion. Look at Dana White after GSP took a break after fighting Johnny Hendricks. Dana White said you owe it to the fans and the company to come back to the UFC. Where's this energy with Jon Jones? When it comes to the likes of Demetrius Johnson, GSP, and other greats of the sport, Dana White's heavily critical. But when it comes to Jon Jones, he almost makes rules for Jon Jones. He makes new rules, new laws for Jon Jones to follow. And I don't know what it is with Dana White. I know the whole glazing thing of Dana White wanting Jon Jones to be pound for pound #1 is quite popular, but it's actually getting weird already. And Jon Jones responded to this whole thing saying it's the equivalent of picograms. What is this guy on about? Like, Jon Jones test positive for picograms again, and he's a filthy cheat who ran his legacy into the ground, and that's... Jon Jones is making memes about this over a petition signing. You've got people in the Twitter comments saying kids crying in the comments have me in stitches, caught Parder. Imagine being a Jon Jones fan trying to defend Jones in 2025. Like, why honestly would you defend Jon Jones? He's got a tainted legacy. He's not a great person. He's inactive. He's a duck as well. Why would you defend Jon Jones? Dude's a pussy with a ruined legacy. Yeah, I agree with this. What Jon Jones should have done, if Jon Jones really didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, what he should have done is simply vacate the belt for a legacy fight with Stipe. Vacate the belt, let Tom Aspinall be the real king of this division, and you can have your little legacy fight with Stipe Miocic. That way, Tom Aspinall can be the champion, and nobody's mad about this whole thing. The division can still stay moving. Why you can have your little Poirier versus Holloway of the heavyweight division with Stipe Miocic. That isn't it for the heavyweight belt. Or number 2, simply just fight Jon. Man up, grab your balls if they've not been shrunken already, and go and get the fight done with Tom Aspinall. Because even if you get knocked out by Tom Aspinall, at least you've got some sort of pride going into that fight with Aspinall. Holding onto the belt whilst publicly ducking Tom Aspinall is probably the worst decision you could have done. Because now everybody knows you're a duck. It's public that you're a duck. And now there's been a fucking petition to get the heavyweight belt removed from you as well. But in all seriousness, Jon Jones getting stripped is probably the best case scenario for Jon Jones. If you really think about it, if Jon Jones does get stripped from the heavyweight belt, and this does happen, everybody's going to be celebrating. But for Jon Jones, he now doesn't have to fight Tom Aspinall. He's not the champion. He's probably not going to be fighting Tom Aspinall if he gets stripped. So he gets a way out of that fight. And even more importantly, he gets to say, I didn't duck him, I got stripped. If we strip Johnson the belt and he doesn't get put to sleep by Aspinall, then the UFC have done a choice of removing Jon Jones, or stripping Jon Jones, and therefore he can go out there and say he didn't duck Tom Aspinall. And I can guarantee if Tom Aspinall does become the undisputed champion, Jones is going to be super nice to Aspinall, tweeting saying, you know, I hope great things for you in the future, Tom Aspinall. I hope you have a great career, as he normally does. Anyway, back to the whole Thailand thing of Jon Jones. What we discussed last week was that Jon Jones was obviously up to some questionable stuff, up to no good in Thailand.
Ooh, yeah. It's going to be intimate and passionate. I'm gonna make him my wife.
He's also responded to a Tom Aspinall comment when Aspinall said he's been inactive for so long, saying, shut your mouth and do as you're told. Jon, you're a 38-year-old man. You have a family. You're a self-proclaimed legend of the sport, and you're on Instagram comments going, shut your mouth, do as you're told, Adesanya McGregor, and you're putting laughing emojis as well. This whole thing of Jon Jones pretending that he's enjoying his life, it just seems like a massive fake. I mean, if you were really enjoying Thailand, enjoying this vacation, you wouldn't have put about 50,000 tweets and social media comments up already. You sat on Twitter all day while in Thailand when you're so-called enjoying your life so much. I think as well, but we need now more than ever for Tom Aspinall to go from a face to a heel. We need heel Aspinall in the UFC. We need Aspinall to turn heel. Stop lil broing Jon Jones. Stop showing him respect. I know Aspinall's a respectful guy, but Jon Jones is probably the last guy in the UFC right now that deserves any respect for what he's done in his career. We need to see Tom Aspinall start bullying Jon Jones, become a heel, become evil Tom Aspinall for this fight. And a bit off topic, but DC would have never looked Tom Aspinall. That's the sad thing. DC, when he was on the same age as Jon Jones at 38, he let Jon Jones at age 30 fight him. And now we've got Jon Jones at 38 years old as the heavyweight champion, and he's not letting 32-year-old Tom Aspinall fight him because he wants these old guys, these legends so-called. And that's why, for me, I just cannot accept anymore Jon Jones for the greatest of all time. I mean, he has got the most steroid fails in UFC history. He popularized the IPOC. He's a rank squatter. He had a career full of middleweight wins. He robbed Dominic Reyes. And to put the cherry on top, which I think really finalizes Jon Jones as not being the greatest of all time, he is the biggest. This is the biggest ducking we've seen in the UFC history. Anyway, this is a link to the petition if you want to join in and sign this petition to get Jon Jones stripped from the heavyweight belt. But that's just my thoughts on this whole situation. Sign the petition. Hopefully Dana White can do something about it, because the best case scenario is Jones getting KO'd by Aspinall, but if that's not going to happen, then just get the belt taken away from him and strip him from the belt. That's my thoughts. Let me know yours. Thank you for watching.